Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling to speak with Art Bell.
That would be me.
How are you, sir?
Quite well. And what is your...
I'd like to extend a Happy New Year to you, and my name is Pat, and I'm calling from New York City.
All right,
I'm
Pat.
listening to you from WABC 77.
Of course.
And I'd like to share an experience. Maybe your listeners might have some sort of an answer for me. I had an encounter August 18th.
Pat, you're going to have to speak up good and loud for me, okay?
And,
Pat?
Yes?
Speak up good and loud, because you're real soft.
Sorry.
That's all right. Just do
I had an experience August 18th, 1988. I was going to get some cough medicine for my child at about 10 o'clock at night. I discovered that I didn't have any more, and he had a cold. I had gone downstairs, and I went outside, and I noticed that there was a mist. Well, for some reason or another, while observing the mist, I happened to look up, and I saw something that is, to this day, the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen in my life.
This is in the middle of New York City, Pat?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I attempted to walk across the street. Now, I live in an area where there's a 4-lane area, traffic going in 4 different directions.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I was so enamored by what I was looking at, I attempted to cross the street, and I felt a car go past me very quickly. At that point, I attempted to walk across, and I'm still looking at this thing, and what I see is a huge craft, but it was shaped sort of like black diamonds, because this is in the evening, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm so enamored with it, and I attempt to turn around to say to someone, "Do you see this?" And what I noticed was there was no people on the street, no more traffic, and I was just stunned. But I was just so enamored by what I was looking at one point I started to wish that someone else could see it. But as far as I could...
Pat, I want you to hold on, all right?
Sure.
All right, Pat, welcome back.
Hi.
Hi.
Anyway, I'm going to pick it up from where we were. I remember wishing that someone else could see what I was seeing.
Of course.
There. And at one point, I became a little nervous because I couldn't understand why I couldn't see any people and I didn't see any cars. We're talking about a 4-lane traffic flow that just instantaneously disappeared. I remember at one point looking across the street, and there was one gentleman standing there. I ran across the street to this gentleman, and I said to him, "Do you see this? Do you see this?" And he was very calm. He said to me, "Do you see it?" He said, "Do you like what you see?" And I said, "It's beautiful." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Well, maybe it's your moon." And I looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "There is no moon that comes down so low that it hovers over the top of a building." I said, "Surely." He says, "Well, maybe where we come from." And I looked at him. And he reached over and he touched my right hand. And he said to me, "If it feels good to you, go with it." And I remember looking at him and I was thinking, wait a minute, this guy is a little strange. And I noticed that his features were very, very sharp. He had, his skin was almost pale, sort of with a silvery overtone. And I said to him, "Guy, you've got to be kidding me." I said, "You mean to tell me you think this is a moon?" I said, "I don't know where you're coming from with this." I said, "But somebody else has got to see this." I shot across the street and I ran into a little store there because I remember I had come out to get some cough medicine for my child.
Yes.
And I run into the store and I'm frantic and I'm trying to get somebody to come outside with me just so that they could look up and see this that I'm looking at.
And let me guess, they wouldn't.
Actually, they were trying to contain me. I guess I was so excited. I guess I was so excited by this that they were immediately just trying to get me to calm down.
Well, this is pretty unusual because most of these things, occur in the deserts of Nevada and the empty wheat fields of Kansas. But, I mean, here you are in the middle of New York City, for goodness sake.
Absolutely. This is why to this day, I don't really quite understand, as I tell you from the depth of my being that this is something that I experienced. I don't know what to make of it.
I believe you.
But it stays with me forever from that point. And what I did was I said to the guy behind the counter, "Please, just come with me outside. Just come with me outside and look up." And he said, "First, I just want you to calm down." He said, "What is it that has you so excited?" I said, "Please, if you just come out with me, you'll see." Well, when I finally got this gentleman to come outside with me, lo and behold, Art, there was traffic, there was people.
The world was back.
Everything was back. I just was absolutely flushed with embarrassment. So much so that I forgot to get the cough medicine. I go back home, and my child says to me, "Where have you been?"
Yes, well.
And I said, "Well, I was only gone for a few minutes." He said, "No, you've been gone for 3 hours."
Oh, my God.
Ask me what happened. I don't know. Maybe you guys can sort of enlighten me. Maybe someone has had a similar experience. I just know for myself that I will never forget that.
Well, if you want another big experience, I have a suggestion for you.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't afraid.
Well, I'm talking about an experience. No, one that's going to help you out with this. Now, listen to me. What I want you to do is consider going to somebody for regressive hypnosis. You can recover those 3 hours. You may not want to know, but if you do want to know, it's possible.
Ooh, I don't know if I have that kind of heart. I really don't. I mean, I wasn't afraid at the time that I was experiencing it. Actually, again, it was the closest thing that I could explain what it looked like. Have you ever seen black, shiny rock with sparkles in it?
I guess I have.
Well, it was very similar to that, but you have to understand that it covered, I'm not good with numbers or width or depth or anything of that sort, but it covered 4 lanes of traffic and over both sides of buildings on the opposite side of the street. That's how huge this thing was. And it was just so beautiful till I couldn't take my eyes off of it. And it seemed the more that I looked at it, the more that it appeared to come down so that I could look at it closer. And I was trying to rationalize in my mind that, okay, well, maybe it's a blimp. Maybe it's something from the stadium, because this is, it occurred where we have the courthouses in the Bronx.
Yes.
So to me, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what it is. But there was no game going on.
Yeah, that's what the human mind tries to do. It tries to make sense of what it sees, even if it's impossible. No, I sure do appreciate your call. It's right in line with what we've been getting this morning, these calls after calls after calls, from people who are obviously telling the truth. That lady was obviously telling the truth. That's all there is to it. Now, you don't frequently get stories like that, not from the middle of the Bronx in New York, no. But she sounded totally lucid to me, and I absolutely think she believes what she just told us. I believe it. So it's up to you out there of what to make of it, I guess. Time Traveler Line, you are on the air.
Yes, Mr. Bell.
You're cutting out.
Yeah, I had to go out in the middle of nowhere so I could see him coming. I've come in more from the past than from the future, and it does not take nearly as much energy as people think to travel time.
Oh?
No, it's more a manipulation of an electromagnetic field with radio frequencies.
Yeah, well, you know, the Philadelphia experiment was about exactly that, and I'm not immune to believing what you're saying, that there could be a combination of electromagnetic energy and rotating RF fields and so forth that could cause exactly that. And you're claiming that's what you have done, and you've come from the past?
More from the past, about the mid-'70s. Your antenna array, that loop antenna array, I haven't seen it, but it sounds like you're real close to actually completing a fairly large circumference for manipulating an area of time.
So you're claiming you came from the 70s, huh?
About the mid-'70s.
About the mid-'70s. And is this a discovery, this mechanism to allow time travel, is it a discovery you made, stumbled on yourself, or others did?
It was something I stumbled on, and I have been found, and I have been given ground rules to follow.
Somebody or something found you?
It's a larger organization than just the government. It's pretty... There's the powers that be that control the government.
Yes.
They also control a group that patrols the time.
Oh, now this is interesting. So then there are certain rules to time travel, which apparently were laid down for you. Is that it?
Yes. If I violate any of those on this phone call, they'll find me faster than I can leave here.
All right. Try and tell me what you can of
the rules for time travel? I mean, what are the... Can you talk about that at all?
To a certain extent, there's a common sense rules. You're not going to go into, like you say, Vegas and play the odds in your favor. You can, to an extent, to where you need money to survive or to accomplish a mission.
But you can't get greedy.
No, they'll come down on you before you ever get to that point.
They. Might we understand the nature of they? Or them?
Your Illuminati is a close understanding, about as close as you're going to get to it.
You believe the Illuminati are the guardians of the secret?
It's an organization that's the Illuminati would pale in a comparison of their barbarism.
I see. So whatever this organization is, it's head and tails above the Illuminati even.
I would say the Illuminati is what they have propagated as, kind of their cover. That the Illuminati, some people say the Illuminati are out there for world domination and control.
Some say.
They'll stop at no means to do it. Mm-hmm. But these people, they're really not out there for domination and control. They're out there to further themselves.
And keep control of people like you.
They can lay down some pretty strict rules.
If you could move through time once, I'm presuming you could do it again.
I can. It's not too hard to do. The hard part is setting up, and I made the mistake of coming to a time where monitoring the radio frequencies and everything is a lot more advanced than I ever thought it could be.
True enough.
And my mistake is for me to set up the type of equipment I would need the moment I turned it on, they would find it. And by the time I tuned in frequencies, they'd be there to stop me.
Fascinating. So was any part of the rules and the warnings laid down that you shall not do it again? Was there concern about that, or what?
If I am to travel, it'll be by their means.
By their means?
Yes, at their discretion and their means.
And I assume that they found you based on what frequencies were generated when you did this.
Yes, they were very high voltage, low amperage electromagnetic fields.
Yeah, that makes sense. Electrostatic energy of some sort and a magnetic field. That's fascinating. And you say you're out and concerned right now that you say something that would bring...
If I stayed down, if I were to speak the wrong things, they could be out in the bushes before I get here waiting for me. So I'm pretty sure I'll be pretty cool on this call. I'm not too afraid of saying the wrong thing, or I think I would have been stopped by now before I made the call.
Were you just a tinkerer, or how did you stumble into this?
Yeah, it was major league tinkering with radios and messing around with 8-tracks and old recorders and stuff. It was nothing I really intended to do, but when your hair stands up on your hands and it's so localized at the same time, the feeling you get, the Hutchison effect is real close from my observation.
Oh, that's fascinating, and that kind of figures, too. Any ill effects because of time travel?
Not that I've experienced. Some of the ill effects that I've heard of, which is why they want me to use their equipment,
yes,
are, for instance, materializing 30 or 40,000 feet above the ground.
That would be bad.
Yeah, it's more getting stuck in a magnetic stream outside the stratosphere, or, you kind of pull in on the wrong spot, is what they're explaining to me. I don't understand a lot of what I did or how I did it, or how it worked. All I know is I turned it on, I said, what the heck, let's try it, and I came out in about 1993.
I'm trying to even imagine what it would be like to jump 20 years. I mean, the technology and the world would have changed so much in 20 years that it'd be almost hard to get around.
Yeah, the garage was, the people that lived in the place that I popped into where I'd left, they had completely remodeled the garage. I felt like I just stepped into a different room. And when I went walking back into the house and all my parents' furniture was gone, and here they are with these cordless phones and everything, I kind of flipped out. And, of course, they flipped out when they saw me.
I'm sure they did. They probably thought, my God, it's a ghost or worse.
Yes. Now, I would like to go ahead and tell you about one of the missions I was able to go on.
All right.
It was for RFID, radio frequencies IDs.
Oh, yes.
Now, they are a major component in being able to locate and track individuals in terrorism.
I would think so.
And it's the quickest way to regain our privacy. As bizarre as that may sound,
it does sound counterintuitive. I mean, you're talking about an RFID, something that would tag you, essentially, but you're saying it really would be our salvation.
They tag you, they monitor your movements, so that if you go somewhere and do something wrong, they can't find you.
Got it.
But they don't monitor you to the point where they know what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're thinking about, or something like that.
You sound like an advocate for the technology.
Only because it's really what kind of the Patriot Act that's coming out is a real dangerous thing, and it threatens to actually expose this organization.
Really?
And it's one organization I'd like to go ahead and keep a lid on.
Apparently. Although, I wonder how you figure this call is okay.
I would have been stopped before I made the call. That's all I can think. I've been stopped from going to Vegas before.
It's kind of a roll of the dice. They've kept you from Las Vegas, have they?
Yeah, my first mission, I did go into the future, and I did research some stocks, but I happened to catch the front page of the sports section. And
all right,
I thought I'd go back, and they didn't cotton to that idea.
Uh-huh. Listen, I appreciate your call, and I guess your plans are what? To live out your life in the time you've now arrived in, or to make another jump?
I can't make some plans. They've got me in a job where they got a harness on me. They got a good idea where I'm at, where I'm going to be.
Uh-huh.
And I think my plans are maybe someday, if I can, with a little bit of luck, figure out how the device they're using is able to pinpoint locations so easily, I might be able to do the same thing and just get back out of here.
If you were to make another jump, where or when, more likely, would you go?
I'm thinking I'd like to get past 2025.
I hope we all get past 2025, and thank you very, very much for the call. Or 2012, for that matter. Now, you see, that call and calls like that are the reason that I leave such lines open. That was a scratch-your-head kind of call, wasn't it? It sounded real, didn't it? It didn't sound made up. It came rolling off too easily and too well, and the aspects of what he said seemed too logical. And, well, if there were time travel, and it was known at least by an elite few, there might be an organization that would monitor such movements for fear of what might occur. On my Area 51 line, you are on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. What shall we call you?
Sasha.
Sasha. That's a nice
Somewhere
name.
in America.
Sasha is somewhere in America, okay. Sasha, have you had some experience with Area 51 or what?
I grew up going into Area 51.
You grew up going into it?
Yes.
Now, I didn't think they let children in.
Well, I was a remarkable child. I grew up under Tesla and Einstein. They both did the work on a southwestern ranch in the southwest in the desert. I grew up watching them do. So my first priority was to become a scientist. At age 10, I had a revelation.
How old are you now?
I'm getting old. I'm aging gracefully.
All right.
It changed my life, though, to the best. It changed my life to, tremendously. I love it.
But to have grown with Einstein and
I love it. I love my life the way it was.
I see.
I don't like being retired, though.
You don't?
No, not at all.
But at your age, you should be retired.
Yes, I should be retired.
I mean, actually, in a lot of ways, you
you
almost ought to be dead to have come along with those people.
I almost was. I came back to the Southwest because I almost died of tuberculosis trying to be a truck driver across America. Well, that's not important. Let's talk about this particular ground that is actually America's jewel.
Area 51?
Area 51 is actually America's jewel.
It is.
So long as outsiders don't know what the scientists are doing in there, or the remarkable people that have the high IQs and work for the future, they are not, they don't want any contamination from outside, abuse like the general public saying, look, what are you doing? And you explain to them what you are doing, and they call you crazy, they call you a liar. And so the whole surmise is to keep things quiet and keep things rolling for the best of our nation.
What did you do at Area 51?
As I grew up, I did most of the paperwork for everyone that was entitled there.
So you were kind of a secretary in a way?
No. I was beyond that.
A super secretary?
No.
Well, I mean, but you did
I got
paperwork.
involved with politics on the forefront.
All right. Well, listen, I've got to scoot. I appreciate the call. I can't, if you did paperwork, well, in administration, I guess, huh? But it seems to me that your age would have to be, well, let's put it this way, Sasha, you sounded pretty good.
There have been sort of offshoots to all of this, and the early stuff involved Bob Lazar, John Lear. Now, from today's perspective, as the story has unfolded and bits and pieces have either been confirmed or refuted over the years, I guess I've got to ask, what is your take on the two of them, Bob Lazar and John Lear?
Well, on Lazar, I know that the world of ufology has pretty made up its mind that Bob is not truthful, and I don't think it's as simple as that. Now, there are gaps in his story and things that don't add up. For example, I always have said from day one that the weakest part of his story dealt with his lack of academic credentials. The schools that he went to say he was never there, and Bob has never gone to any great lengths to prove that he was there. However, I lived through this stuff. I know the strange things that were happening back there. I know how government agencies reacted to the story coming out, and the phones were tapped and people were followed around and threats were made back then. I know how Los Alamos Lab reacted to my inquiries about his employment. I know what happened when he got into legal trouble here and the stories that he told the courts when he was facing prison time. I believe him. I believe he is telling the story as he knows it. That does not mean it is a literal truth, because we both know that games can be played by the folks who run these kinds of programs. So, I think there was something out there. I think Bob is telling the truth about it. I don't exactly know why it all spilled out as it did, but I hope to one day. John Lear is also a complicated guy. I don't take everything he says literally. But I owe him a debt of gratitude, because way back when I was starting in this stuff, in fact, he got me to do the first UFO program. I had a little talk show called On the Record that we did about a year before I ever met Lazar. And it was incredible. I put him on that little talk show that nobody watches, that aired like 5 o'clock in the morning and had politicians normally on it, and my phone rang off the hook. And I wonder, what the heck is this deal? I mean, I'd always had the same kind of curiosity about UFOs as the next guy, but had John on again, and the response was tremendous, and I realized this is something I've got to look into. This is something that touches the pulse of the public. So I owe John a debt of gratitude in that sense, and he provided me with a great deal of information in the beginning. I do not take everything he says, though, literally.
That makes two of us. I agree with you on all counts. I have interviewed now, I think Bob Lazar 2 or 3 times, and I'll tell you something, George. When you get somebody with a wild story, you interview them once. There it is, and generally the second and third time you interview them, the story grows, and That never happens with Bob. Bob's story is so consistent. His presentation of it is so calm, collected, and the story doesn't grow. It's just what it is, and I believe he's telling the truth.
Well, and plus the fact that he doesn't care whether people believe him or not.
That's right.
You know, he doesn't go out of his way to seek attention about this stuff. You don't want to believe him? Fine. He has nothing.
No, in fact, actually, quite the opposite. He's hard to get to come on the radio at all. It's kind of like, I've told my story. That's it. I'd rather not come on again, but you can sort of drag him on, and when you do, you get the same story. He is so consistent. That's
right. I had a chance to fill in for you, Art, when you were in the Philippines, and had Bob on the show. And it was like pulling teeth to get him to do it. But once you get him there and get him rolling, it's good stuff, and it's the same stuff that you heard, almost 18 years ago.
Do you believe that they took element, what was it? I think 115, right? Out of Area 51. Do you think that happened?
That Bob and or cohorts did? Yeah, I do believe it.
Yes.
Yeah, because I saw it. I saw it it was in a leaden container. It was at his house for a time period. I saw some experiments they did with what they call a cloud chamber, how this thing sort of bent light.
I had no idea you had seen it.
Yeah. When Bob thought he was going to be, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll go ahead. When Bob thought he was going to be taken out, he had this particle accelerator at his house, and he had this container with the 115 in it right in front of it, and he was ready to flip a switch and say goodbye to Las Vegas, I think. I don't know if that was a dramatic gesture or what it was, but thank God he didn't do it. Now,
I've never heard this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not a pretty picture. I've really made some effort over the years, I guess obviously not enough effort to find that stuff because it's obtainable. I think it's obtainable.
There was a movie in which they called something like that unobtainium.
Yeah, right.
It is obtainable. So you actually saw this stuff. You saw some of the experiments. This is really important.
I did. They had it in a lead-cased, disc-shaped container. They also, at one point, had done, like I said, these experiments with this cloud chamber where this it appeared to bend the smoke that was floating around inside this cloud chamber. I couldn't figure out how they did it. I'm not a scientific expert. I guess they could have pulled the wool over my eyes, but they were doing these experiments for themselves, Bob and some of his cohorts, and having fun with it.
Yeah, but see, this is doubted. This is one of the parts of the story very much doubted by many, and so you just sort of put a piece of the puzzle in the truth area that frankly I wasn't all that sure of. So, wow.
Well, Bob had said they had several hundred pounds of this stuff up there, and of course the scientific community scoffs at that. When Bob first said they had 115 up there, 115 officially did not exist. It does now. Right. Although the stuff that was synthesized lasted only a few microseconds and does not sound like what Bob described. Well, he sticks to the story that this would be a different isotope. It's you got to mix different stuff in there for it to stabilize
stable?
As he saw it.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know what became of the 115 that Bob had?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Proceed.
Well, I don't think I can tell you that. We can talk about it off the air, Art, but I still have sort of a plan in mind. It's going to be difficult, though, so maybe we can do that together.
So the 115 continues to be in existence.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was all the folks who made fun of Bob for that stuff didn't realize that there's this heavy ion research lab in Germany that was calling him up all the time, asking for suggestions and looking for guidance in how they could eventually make the stuff, and they have.
Hi. What is your first name?
Mary.
Mary. Okay, Mary. You know what this is all about now. You have had actual physical contact, Mary, with an alien?
Well, many times, but this is something that's very unusual. About 2 months ago, I had an alien actually enter into my body while I was fully awake, 7 o'clock at night, my family around. I mean, my husband saw me. It was bizarre.
When this event occurred, Mary, were you conscious of what was happening to you?
Totally conscious.
Totally conscious.
I was getting ready to watch Dateline, and I had all this energy flowing through my body, and I looked up, and I could see 3 aliens, the Greys, standing there, and they're actually in a beam of light.
Okay.
And they just showed themselves for a second, and about 15, 20 minutes later, I couldn't get up off the chair, and I finally was able to get up, and I felt really weird, and all of a sudden, it felt like there was 2 people inside of me, and I could actually feel them and feel its feelings.
All right. This is going to seem like a rude question, Mary, but
okay.
I'm going to ask it. How do you know it wasn't all in your head?
Because you know what, it felt like my body was just overstuffed, and plus I had all this energy just flowing through my body.
I know, I've got all that. But I mean, how do you know that it was sourced out? How do you know that it really was aliens? Now you say you saw Greys, so again,
if I had not have saw them, had I not seen them, I would have thought maybe it was just some bizarre episode. But I don't know how else to explain it.
Could it have been a bizarre episode accompanied by something in your imagination? Could that be? Or what, was there any way for you to discern that you were fully conscious? Reach down, pinch yourself, whatever. I
was walking around. I actually went outside, and I was walking around. I was talking to my husband, but I was also experiencing this. How else do you explain something else being in your body? It's hard to
I don't know. What do you think the intent was of what was done to you? Why? Any idea? Guess?
What I understand is that I could tell I'll just call it a he, had never experienced the human physical body before. Seemed somewhat maybe more dimensional. Maybe that's why he just seemed so amazed with
at the time
petting the dog and petting the cat.
Got it. At the time that he was in you, so to speak, or meshed with you, not only was he detecting you, but you were detecting his feelings as well.
Yeah, and that is how I know that there was somebody inside of me. Not only that, you could physically see. I mean, my husband was looking at me, and I was looking at myself in the mirror. My eyes felt like they were bulging out, and my face just was different.
What did your husband have?
See it.
Yeah, what did he have to say about all of this?
He didn't quite. He believed me. Because I've had other things happen. Before, but he believes me. He really believed me, and there was no doubt about it that something just amazing was happening, and I don't know how else to, what else to say about it. It was a great, unique experience, and I have to say that very, very benevolent, kind.
Okay. That's
thing inside of me.
That's what I wanted. Benevolent and kind. So you felt all of that there wasn't any, I don't know.
No intrusion.
Yeah.
There was none of that. It was like a child touching things and walking for the first time. So it was really a unique experience for me too.
Well, that's a very interesting description, like a child doing something for the first time. That's what it would be like too.
He was very worried about scaring my husband and scaring my son. I actually kept turning away from my son because I looked so bizarre at the time.
All right. As with most who have had this kind of experience, apparently, and you said it, it's happened to you before. Maybe not exactly this.
That's the only time that had happened. I've had other contacts with aliens, and I've woken up on ships and things like that. But this is really a unique.
Is there anything else? You know, it's an opportunity. An awful lot of people listening. You had real contact. Was there any message or any understanding that you gleaned from these beings in any of your encounters that would be important to pass along to the audience?
Well, a lot of the encounters that I had, I only remember bits and pieces, and I had a lot of anger and hostility. So I'm really kind of shocked that in these last years I've had really great experiences with them, and all I have to say is that they were the Greys, and these ones were really nice. I can't say that for all of them, but
do you think the early bad experiences that you had were only bad because you were frightened, or do you think they really were bad, you know, in perspective, looking back?
You hit it right on the head, Art. I think that's what it was. I was so afraid. Actually, what I did was I was so afraid of them, and I was so angry at being abducted all the time that I just said out loud, "Come to me during the day, and I won't be afraid. If you just do, you scare me at night." And when I said that, I started having these great daytime experiences. So, I don't know what else. That happened. Maybe it'll help other people. Maybe if they do that.
Do you think this is really common, Mary? Do you think a lot of people are having these experiences? Have you met anybody else who is?
Not that kind of an experience. Not where they've come right inside your body. I've never heard of that.
Well, yeah,
but I know,
I
know people have had good experiences.
I've never heard of it either, Mary. But the odds are, now that you have told this story, trust me, I'll bet you a whole bunch of light bulbs went on out there, and there's people trying to dial saying, that happened to me too. Anyway,
I hope they do.
Yep, and I really appreciate your calling. So there's no overall message that you got, Mary, that people should know about. I mean, are you ready to say, don't worry, they're friendly?
Well, I don't know all of them, so I couldn't honestly say that. I'm happy I met some that were nice. I can't speak for all of them, but the ones I've been meeting lately are very nice. So
again,
I got no direct message from him when he was inside of me. He was there to just experience. No big earth straighten out or else kind of message, right? No, no.
Okay, Mary. Thank you for calling.
So I thought, well, what the hell, be on the safe side, and we'll open up the Area 51 government worker line tonight, before next week. Probably doesn't pertain to me. Or does it mean the suits will be here again? On my Area 51 government worker line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Where, pray tell, well, if you want to tell us.
I'd rather not. I was just wondering how secure this line is. The information I give, there's no caller ID, right?
Oh, no. No, I don't have caller ID.
Okay.
I don't even want it.
I was once an electrical technician on Nellis Air Force Base. I was on the base proper. We had approximately 100 structures there. They said stored nuclear weapons, 50 with the nukes and 50 with the collars.
Oh, listen, I believe that. What do you mean collars?
That's the collar that goes around the nuclear weapon that causes it to explode. Well, we had a lot of problems with lights, strange noises. I was an electrical tech, and I never got to go out there at night except for one time. He was a scientist. I really can't give any names, but we went out, and there was a standard glow that he said he saw around certain structures. And I said, well, what is that? He
Wait.
said,
Do you mean buildings? You mean the buildings out there around buildings that were near Nellis?
It's on the base.
On the base, on Nellis.
It's on the base.
So you're talking about a glow around buildings there, right?
These were the concrete structures. There's 100 of them. It covers approximately a mile square.
And that's where the big babies are housed?
That's where they're at.
And there would be a glow around them.
Different individuals at different times. And I said, well, I never got to see these glows. And he says they would bring us out at night, wake me up and bring me out. That's what he told me. And I said, well, what was the problem? Because I was in the electrical field. I said, what was it?
Right.
And he says, it's the spacemen. And I said, what do you mean? He says, Blue Book Project. I said, well, that's been closed since, 73 or so.
This was not an officer. Was it an officer?
No, he was a civilian. There was about 20 techs, and he was one of the civilians.
And he wasn't kidding?
No, not at all.
He wasn't laughing. He wasn't snickering.
He said, no. He said, didn't you know about it? And I said, no, all I do is check circuits and run for voltage and amperage. And he says, well, this is the real deal. And
as you well know, sir, Nellis is support for Area 51 here.
No, well, I'm really not up on this UFO thing. As a matter of fact, this is only the second time I've ever heard you on the radio, and I just thought, well, that'd be interesting for your viewers, and maybe somebody has some connections out it. Now, let's find out a little bit more about it.
Glowing buildings. Great. All right, sir. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. That had the sound of reality to it, didn't it? Okay. All right, so Area 51 workers and government workers wishing to blow some sort of big whistle at area code 775-727-1222. If that's not you, call one of the other lines. Don't call that line. We're going to hold that line open just for people in that man's kind of category. My. Glowing buildings. A wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, I'd like to thank Art for asking the tough questions in that FBI interview with Candace DeLong.
You're very welcome. This is Art, sir.
Oh, I'm on the air. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I don't have call screeners, so you just go on the air.
Okay, great. Listen, I really want to thank you, Art, for that interview and asking Candace some tough questions there. I don't know if you've had these folks on as guests, but did you ever have Dan Gifford, the retired journalist who did the Rules of Engagement documentary?
In Waco. I don't think so. I had somebody on about that long ago, but it wasn't him.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dan Gifford used to work for the New York Times. He was a professional journalist, and then he spent $1.5 million of his own money doing this documentary, and he was nominated for an Academy Award. Siskel and Ebert reviewed it. And
I was very much aware of that. Oh, sure.
Yeah, and then his executive producer did a follow-on, which is his name is Mike McNulty. It's called Rules of Engagement: A New Revelation. And I believe if people do a search on the Internet, they can find those. And there's David T. Hardy was a lawyer. But anyway, the disturbing thing about the FBI is the evidence. In Dan Gifford's movie, he interviews the sheriff there at Waco, and he also interviewed the coroner there, and the records were taken from the coroner, and they were promised to be returned, and they were never returned.
Look, there's so many things wrong, sir. We could spend 1 million years.
Back on the air again. Hi.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, anyway, what I was doing was sitting there kind of sulking over my losses. But anyway, this man walked up with a suit on, and he was kind of a movie star looking kind of guy with the dark hair, slick back, Vaseline, almost like the late 30s or 40s. And he sat down, and I thought he looked pretty rough, and he said, "Go to the Flamingo." And I said, "What'd you say?" And he said, "Go to the Flamingo and play in the table in front of me."
Really?
And I said, "Well, I don't."
In front of him.
That's what he said.
In other words, he was going to be there as well to point the way.
He said, "Play the table in front of me."
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
So anyway, I asked him if he wanted to drink, because I used to drink scotch, and he said, "I'd love a scotch." And he took a scotch, and he walked away.
Yes.
And I asked the bartender, I said, have you ever saw him before? And he said, well, I didn't really see who you were sitting by. I hadn't seen anybody sit by you tonight. And as I watched him go up the escalator, he sort of disappeared.
Mm.
But there was a lot of people at the MGM. This was the night of the Tyson fight.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sure you beat feet to the Flamingo, right?
Well, I went out and got in the bus, and I'd never ridden in a bus in my life.
Yes, sir.
Public bus. It was 4 a.m.
Yes, sir.
And I went down and just went. I wasn't sure exactly where the Flamingo was at that time, but there it was. And so I walked in the main door, and I walked around the blackjack tables because that's my favorite game.
Yes.
And I never did see this gentleman standing by a table, and I thought to myself, well, this is crazy. And then I looked over to the left, and there's a cardboard figure of a person, full size.
You got to be kidding.
And I didn't know who it was at all. And I asked one of the dealers. I said, "Well, who's that cardboard figure?" Because it looked just like the guy I met at the Flamingo.
Yes.
And he said, "Well, that's Bugsy Siegel."
Oh,
and I said,
God.
"You got
He's a father of Las Vegas."
That's what he told me. He said, "That's Bugsy Siegel."
That's the founding father of the city over the hill.
Well, anyway, his cardboard statue or figure was right there.
So you played?
I played and won $7,000.
Oh my God! Now that's one hell of a story.
It's a true story.
You swear on TV Guide?
Well, I swear to you, that's a true story. I told my son this story. Me and my son went and stayed out in Pahrump also for about a week. And I've listened to you over the years, but actually I stayed in Crystal, that little city just north of Pahrump.
Oh, that is a little city indeed.
Yeah, there's 4 rooms out there. But that's what we spent the money on, was just hanging around out there.
$7,000. Yes. Well, that's a hell of a story, man. Thank you very, very much for the call. That's really a cool story. Yeah, Bugsy. Bugsy was mafia. Bugsy is the man who founded Las Vegas. The founding father of Las Vegas. That's quite a claim, huh? Gangster founded the city. Well, he did. He could have, we've often wondered, if he'd stumbled over the hill, Las Vegas might be where I'm sitting at the moment. That's an incredible story. And you know something else? It kind of figures that Bugsy'd be hanging around. And where else would he be?